writing, but we'll just ask a few questions and then we'll move on. Alright. Who can tell me Rosh HaMoladot? Good. Yitron Chodesh Levana. Midat Shnat Levana. No, that's Yitron Shnat Levana. Meaning Katyat Tafsek times 12. You could just say Katyat Tafsek times 12. Yitron Shana Pishuta. Yitron Shana Me'oberet. Midat Shana. No, I know because those are Shana. Shnot Mahzor Katan. 19. Sikumei Hodshei HaMahzor. 235.
Why do you call it Mahzor Katan? That's the way off.
Mahzor Katan is 19 years. That's because there's another Mahzor. Shnat Eibur B'Mahzor. Good. All right. How many halakim in a sha'ah?
80.
Okay, this I mentioned it to you once, but we're going to need it now. How many rega'im in a halak?
1/18.
What's the rega?
1/76th of a halak is called a rega. 1/76th of a halak is a rega.
You mean a rega is like 80,000? There's 80,000 regaim in an hour?
You did the math.
180 times 76.
Yeah, whatever.
1080.
Whatever that is. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Lo adurosh. Why?
Because Netaya or Yarkaya
Good.
or and Aleph is because of Hoshan Arba on Shabbat.
Bingo. Very good. Testing memory. This was going to be a written test, but
except the Quentin Ambam who made up his own calendar.
Which is what?
Oh no.
To get back to the Chodesh. Okay. This would be asking a lot. But do you remember the 14 type of years that you could have?
Have it down.
That was it. This is his test, not my test. Okay. What year is this? You remember what year this is?
What Tashab?
No, I know what the year is. I mean, what type of year is it?
Shuta.
Bahag.
How do you know? Oh well, this month, right? It's Hasidah this year.
In fact, it was a shul. I mean, I happened to make my own mistake this year announcing Rosh Chodesh. But I just got the wrong date. But there was a shul that announced 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. I forgot it's a Bahag. I forgot 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. It's a Bahag.
You got to put the calendar on it.
Apparently the calendar was wrong, but yeah, the shul announced 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. Yes, I'm sure 2 days of Rosh Chodesh, unless this is also Rosh Chodesh Tebet. Bahag. Right? You have never. Kislev can't be Malay if it's a Hasira. Okay. All right. Are we good?
Hope that's not true.
All right. Someone tell me just what's Boged Uba.
No, wait,
check.
I know that.
Did
you get it?
Who's the Mahsudi?
Bed Mahzor, Vav Shuta, Gimel Nom, Mubala.
And Dalit is Shah.
Of the sheep.
No, Hadashi.
Of the sheep. Uba.
Uba is days, hours, Shah. Days, hours, Halakim.
Good. Correct. And then what do you do? So
Plus
how do you do
2 for Boged, divide by 7. And Uba divided by 7, and the remainders have to be
the same. Okay. All right. We're all good, right? We're all remembering these things. Good. Should we throw out a molad just to have some fun?
What do you mean?
Figure out a molad? Should we try one? We're not done with them. You're going to need them. Okay. I started mentioning that there are things called like a mahzor gadol and a mahzor katan. The mahzor that we did is basically what we call a mahzor katan, which is is a 19-year cycle. But there is also something else called the Mahzor Gadol. The Mahzor Gadol is a 28-year cycle. Most of you are familiar with the Mahzor Gadol because of the law of the Katahama. The Mahzor Gadol is an outgrowth of the Shita of Shmuel. I mentioned to you 2 Shitot beforehand. I think I'm doing that. All right, well, I'll try and do it out today, but I may need the book. No, for now, if I need it, we'll get it. Okay, so, let me throw out 3 figures to you. A year, according to our best observation on astronomical calculations in modern day science, is 365 days, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and about 45 seconds. For 365, 5 hours, 48 minutes, 45 seconds. For now, let's just go to 49 minutes, just because we don't want to keep, but you should know that it's not 48 minutes, 45 seconds, okay? That's the actual, accurate solar cycle. That's the average, how long it takes the sun, right? Or I shouldn't say the sun, the earth to complete its, how you doing?
Corner of Teeny 7.
Okay. Let's get them as well. Alright, that's the length that it takes the earth to complete its rotation around the sun. That is also the length of the year, and that's the length of 4 seasons. Right? A year is made out of 4 seasons. Okay? Halakha, so the Gemara presents to us 2 opinions as to the length of the solar cycle. Okay, there is the opinion of Shmuel. Definitely going to need the board. Shmuel is, I'm going to need the board. 365 and a quarter. 365 and a quarter. Okay? That sounds familiar because that's probably what we were taught in elementary school. That's the length of the Julian calendar. And that's the year according to Shmuel. Basically, if it's 365 and a quarter, so how much is each season?
91 days.
Divide by 4, so do it.
1 day.
This is not hard. 364 is 91. You got 1 and a quarter. Divide that into 4.
375. No. 0.375.
Okay, so why don't we just say it this way? 7.5 hours. 7.5 times 4 is 30. Right? 1 1/4 days is 30 hours. Okay? We could just, it's life easy. Right? So it's basically according to Shemuel, the season is 91 days and 7.5 hours. This is, now, based on this, Shemuel comes up with based on the Shemuel theory, right? We have this 28-year cycle. The 28-year cycle is only valid if you follow Shemuel. Why? Because, let us imagine, you have 365 and a quarter, right? Now, 364 is divisible by 7, 91. So, the time that the year advances prior to its last year is 1 1/4 days on the week, correct? You with me, guys?
No. Okay.
Just like we did with Molad.
Just like you test out, this is different.
364 is divided into 4 into 91. You see that, correct? That's obvious. So therefore, if I want to know the beginning of one spring season compared to the beginning of the equinox last year, if I want to go from a spring equinox to another spring equinox, I'm going to assume that it's going to move across the week 1¼ days. Correct?
Wait, that means the equinoxes are different every year?
On the week. It's the same. Listen, just follow me. Don't, again, we need to start from the beginning, just like I did with the... So, it means that the equinox will move amongst the day a week, a day and a quarter later. So if the equinox, as we'll assume, and as is assumed, 1 year is Tuesday night at 6 p.m. That's Leila Revi'i, the beginning of Leila Revi'i, correct? Correct? You with me? Because on the equinox, 6 p.m. is going to be Shkia practically. Right? If you take that day, let's say it's going to be very close. So if I assume that, the spring equinox next year will be when?
Wednesday, 12 a.m.
No.
Thursday, 12 a.m.
Oh, you're right, Thursday.
It'll be, yes.
Thursday.
Thank you. It'll be Thursday.
12:30.
What?
12 a.m. What, a quarter?
It'll be Thursday, 12 noon. No, 12 midnight. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Good. And the next time? The year after?
This isn't the night of the day.
Right, it'll be
The day and a
Friday,
quarter, we're rounding it off to the 11.
6 a.m.
Would really be
There's no
And the next one?
at 11:48.
12
45
p.m. Saturday at 12 p.m.
Good.
There's no halakim?
That's PM meaning noon.
Yeah. There's no halakim?
Why should there be halakim? Leave out halakim. Okay. The next year?
6 p.m. on Sunday.
So what happens after 5 years, guys, is we got back to 6 p.m. See? How long will it take to get back to Tuesday, 6 p.m.?
Let's keep going.
So, not 5 years. It took me 4 years, a group of 4 years, for obvious, because it's a quarter. So, the quarter evened its way out. So, in 4 years, I moved exactly 5 days.
So you have to times by 7.
In other words, in 4 years, guys, in 4 years, I moved exactly 5 days. You see that? From Tuesday, 6 p.m., right? So, if you multiply the only way I'm going to get back to Tuesday, 6 p.m. is I'm going to have to move 35 days. 5 weeks. I need so I have to multiply this 4 by 7, which will give me 28. Every 28 years, the equinox is coming back to this point.
That's Birkat HaChama.
And that's Birkat HaChama. It's very simple. That's Birkat HaChama. That's all it is. The Gemara speaks it in codified language. The Gemara in Berachot, because the Gemara doesn't say Tuesday 6 p.m. The Gemara creates astronomical signs for every hour of the day. But they have nothing, that Gemara has nothing to do with the astronomical signs that Gemara in Berachot. It's just naming hours a day. So therefore, it creates a problem to understand it, and that creates a very difficult Rashi in Berachot. Samech Amud Bet, right? Very difficult.
Right.
But here it's simple. It's simple because it's. I just have in 4 days. I'm going to neutralize the quarter, but I want to neutralize 1¼ right? So how do I neutralize that 1¼ to come back? I have to find a time, or I have to find a number. I have to find a number that's going to be divisible by 7. Right? So, in 7 years it's not going to happen. 14 years it's not going to happen. Why? Because I had to neutralize the quarter by going 4. So, at 4 years, I neutralized the quarter. I now move 1¼ days a year. I multiply that by, in 4 years, I moved 5 days. So now, I got back to 6 p.m. Great. The only problem is I'm on Sunday. Now, 4 years later, where am I going to be?
No.
4 years later.
5 days to Sunday, 6 p.m.
That's where am I going to be?
What is
Thursday.
that? Thursday?
Correct. I'm going to be at Thursday, 6 p.m. So that's 10 years. 5 years later, where am I going to be?
No, 5 days.
Tuesday.
No,
When-
Friday, 6 p.m.
When,
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday, 6 p.m. I'm not going to have Tuesday, 6 p.m.
And Friday.
Friday,
No, I
6
mean,
p.m. That's Friday, not
Well,
Thursday.
you mean
yeah,
4
I'm
years
sorry.
later.
Yeah, this has got to be Friday. I apologize. You have to move 5 days. So from Sunday, 6 p.m., Yom Aleph,
Oh,
to
not,
Yom Vav.
not including.
No,
Sunday.
include 5 days. Just add 5 days. It's not, you don't have to include or not include.
Let's
From Friday, if I add 5 days, where am I going to be in? So this takes 10, this took 8 years, right?
Wednesday.
This took 8 years, correct?
Yeah.
Another 4 years, where am I going to be?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, 6 p.m. So now I moved how many years?
12.
15.
12 years. Okay?
It's every 4 years, not 5.
Right.
4
4
years.
years.
4 years.
So
is
4
5
years
days.
later, where am I going to be?
Monday.
How many years am I now?
16.
Good. 4 years later, how am I going to be?
Zion.
So,
So where am I now? That's 20, right?
Yeah.
4 years later, where am I going to be?
Thursday.
And 4 years late after that, where am I going to be?
Tuesday.
So that's my 28-year cycle. Okay? I just did it here, but it should make obvious mathematical sense also. And that's, so the Birkat Hama is totally reliant on this. Now, you can very well imagine, if I had, it's easy to neutralize one, a quarter and 1 1/4. If I had to neutralize 48 minutes, 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 45 seconds, that could take thousands of years cycle to do that.
It really takes that long.
Yeah, I once did a mathematical equation. You can imagine it would be, you would make Birkat Hama once every couple thousand years. Okay?
Wait, so Birkat Hama is not the real Birkat Hama then?
Well, whatever it is, it is what it is. It's not nothing.
So Shmuel-
It's a-
So Shmuel purposely ignores this 11 hours and
Yeah,
15
so that's a
seconds.
good question. Most authorities agree that Shmuel knew that he was giving an estimate and not an accurate year. Okay? A lot of the Greeks knew it already. Shmuel was certainly proficient in his time. And most authorities agree that Shmuel purposely rounded it up. Now, we rely on Shmuel to create this, what we call this Mahzor Gadol, which is 28 years. As opposed to the Mahzor Katan, which we talked about until now, which is 19 years. So, now, one second. So, this is where we rely on Shmuel. We really rely on Shmuel just for this halakha. Birkat Hama, as well as for one other halakha. I only talked about spring equinox. But if we want to find out all equinox and solstices according to Shmuel, which are called tkufot, the tkufa means a season, or the first day of the season, meaning 2 equinoxes and 2 solstices. That's what we call it, tkufa. So, if I wanted to say that Tuesday 6 p.m. is going to be the beginning of the spring equinox, right? What happens now if the entire year is 365.25, 365 1/4? That means every season will be 91 days and 7.5 hours. Okay, you with me? Correct? That means, okay, that the season, right? The season is going to be, let's only talk now about the time for a minute. So spring season, as you saw, will always be when? Either 6 o'clock p.m., 12 noon, 6 a.m., 12 midnight, 6, 12 midnight, 6 a.m. and noon and back to 6 p.m. It will only be at 6 or 12 o'clock respectively. Right? That's the only time it could be. I showed that to you. The next tkufa is going to be the summer solstice. What times of the day will that be on?
1:30 and 8
Well, it'll be, the solstice will be 1:30 and 7:30. Right? And it would be, if you wanted to figure out, according to Shmuel, the day of the week of the solstice, summer solstice, you would add 91 days, 7.5 hours from this day. And then you would get that. Now, something very important right now. All we're talking about now is extremely elementary. We're only trying to find out the day of the week of the tkufa.
Not the hour.
We are going to have to get to a point where, and that was all we needed to do for the molad, because we already knew what the day of what the actual Hebrew date of molad would be. It's Aleph or Rosh Chodesh, whatever. But we're going to have to get to a point where we're going to have to figure out Hebrew dates for tkufot. That's going to be much trickier. But right now, all I want to do is figure out the day of the week of the tkufa. So, I showed you how to figure out the day of the week of the spring equinox. You start at 6 p.m., Tuesday 6 p.m., then you add a day and a quarter. Right? Now, if you add a day and a quarter to, right, you add a day and a quarter for the spring equinox, right? What am I going to do when it comes to moving from season to season?
What was that, 7.5 hours?
Right, so you're only going to add 7.5 hours. That's what you would add. Okay? Right, that's clear. That's all you need to add. Why? Because 91 is divisible by 7 into 13. So the 91, we don't really care. So so if this spring equinox was at 6 p.m., right, Tuesday night, that year, the summer solstice will be at Wednesday 1:30. Okay? When will the fall equinox be that year?
Thursday at 3.
Well, this is 1:30 a.m. Right? Wednesday 1:30 a.m., right?
9 a.m.
Good. It'll be what?
Wednesday.
Wednesday, 9 a.m. Right?
9:03.
And when will the winter solstice that year be?
At 1:30.
Wednesday.
What? Never mind. I think that-
Well, yeah, not 1:30.
No.
Add 7.5 hours.
4:30.
Right, add 7.5 hours to 9 a.m.
4:30.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah?
Yeah.
And the next spring equinox, this is PM, the next spring equinox
Should be
11
Thursday,
12.
12. Thursday, 12.
midnight.
Thursday midnight, which is something we just said before, right? 1 year. If you look, that was what we had before.
That's 1.25, right?
So now, the spring equinoxes will be at 6 p.m., 6, 12, 6, and 12. Here, again, it's 1:30. The next year's will be when? If it's 1:30 a.m.,
7:30 a.m.
right, you have a day and a quarter for the year. It would be 7:30, 1:30, 7:30, right? And this will be 9,
3.
3, 9, 3. And this will be 4:30, 10:30.
That's weird.
4:30, 10:30.
So it's gonna be always like this, hopefully.
Because it's 6 hours moving. So that's how things are going to develop. And this is relevant to Shmuel's calendar. Okay? This is the calendar and the tikufa of Shmuel Yadhina. Okay? Alright? He was known, and basically it's an easy number to deal with. And people used it, the Romans used it. This is something we know was used, and that is the tikufa of Shmuel. We only rely on this for two laws. The only time we rely on Shmuel is for Birkat HaHama, and for obvious reasons, because according to any other more accurate calendar, you'll never make Birkat HaHama. I don't remember the exact amount, but it's an astronomical amount. And for Balech Aleinu. Balech Aleinu has to be said 60 days
After the tkufa.
after Tkufat
Fall.
Tishrei.
Stop, no?
The time, in order to figure out Tkufat Tishrei, we use Shmuel's calendar. There is another calendar.
Is that purposely or like we just never switched?
Well, we'll get back to that. There's another calendar. And that's the calendar of Rav Ada. You know, before I go to Rav Ada. Okay. Yeah. If I assume this to be a calendar, watch what would happen now to my, let's go back to my 19-year cycle. What's the point of the 19-year cycle?
Or to match it up with the solar?
The point of my 19-year cycle is to make sure that the tkufa of Nisan, right, is never comes after Yom Tov Rishon Shel Pesach. That's what I want. That's why I have leap years.
Yom Tov Rishon?
Yom Tov Rishon of Pesach. I never want the tkufa of Nisan
To be after that. On the day of it, okay. And
How do we ensure that? Basically, we take two things. We find the molad of Tishrei, of Nisan, and we figure out a tkufa of Nisan. Now, we haven't discussed how to figure out the tkufa of Nisan. We haven't discussed that.
Calculation to figure out the Tikufat?
Yeah. We haven't discussed that. We're going to discuss that. We're going to have fun with that. But if I have these 2 days, this can't be much later than this. Because if it becomes too much later than this, then the holiday that comes approximately 2 weeks after this molad must happen after Tkufat Nisan.
Yeah, why didn't this do?
Yeah.
Why do Molad Nisan? Not Rosh Chodesh Nisan.
Well, okay. In order to perform calculations, I need to do based on the molad, because Rosh Chodesh becomes arbitrary.
But not based on Molad Nisan.
I need to do it. I need to do molad, because how else am I going to figure out
Rosh Chodesh.
the months? Now, basically,
No, but it's Molad Tisha.
you can't figure out Rosh Chodesh. There's no way to figure out Rosh Chodesh. I can only figure out the molad. So watch what happens. Every solar year is 365 and a quarter. Every 12 lunar cycles, that is one solar cycle. We're going to call that one SC. 12 lunar cycles is what? Is 29 days, 12 hours, and 793 halakim times 12. So let's do that for a minute.
Do that on. Okay.
Should I just give you a number?
no.
This is a little
355.
bit.
Can we do this in
95, 16.
It's on the chart, no?
Isn't like Katya touched that?
It's something.
Katya plus 6 times 12.
54.
What is it? You touched that?
354 what?
You've touched that was the 12.
Yeah, more than that. It's not gonna, this is not going to add double 354, guys. Yeah, 29 and a half is 3. I'll give you what?
200.
It's going to be 354
Plus 793.
plus 993 halakim times 12. So just give me 793 halakim times 12.
9516.
Isn't that you've touched
Huh?
that?
780.
I got 9516.
Yeah.
Good. Now divided by 1080.
You got 8 remainder. 1 second.
How many hours?
8
8,
hours.
good.
Remainder minus what was the number again? 9516. Remainder 876.
So
What's the remainder?
look what happens now. There's a difference here. Every year, the solar cycle is 365, right? It's 365 days and 6 hours, correct?
No.
That means, if I start at any Tkufat Nisan and any Molad Nisan, and I assume they're at the same moment, which is not always a correct assumption, but if I make that assumption, right?
Yeah, about 2 years.
A year later, they won't be at the same time.
No.
Because the Tkufa will be later than the Molad. Because the Tkufa will be 365, 6 hours. And the Tkufa will be 354, 8 hours, and 876 halakim. If I want to know how much later the Tkufa advances past its Molad, I do 365, 6 minus 354,
Minus
8,
7.
876.
Wait, minus 7, and then you gotta add 1080 to 876.
So it's about, I'll give you the number.
I'm sorry,
You
no,
don't
it's
have to know.
6 hours, you're
I'll
gonna
just-
5 and 10.
I will give you the number so you don't have to do the math.
That's fine.
It's,
10 hours, 10 days.
204 halakim.
right. So let's say, just to translate it to minutes and seconds, it will be 10 days, 21 hours, 11 minutes, 20 seconds. Okay?
10 days.
I'm no genius, I have it in front.
10
Okay?
days. 10 days.
He's writing it down.
10 days, it's not crucial here. 10 days, 21 hours, 11 minutes, 20 seconds.
Only
Now,
11.
what happens after 2 years?
When,
Well, that number will be doubled.
So,
when
20 days.
So, okay. So the Tkufa, right, will be. In other words, if the Tkufa and the Molad were at the same point, then after 2 years, it'll be approximately 21 and 3/4 days later.
how Shana 2 now Shana Ma'ubiri?
Because, again, it would have to be if we started at the same moment.
But with 7 days off?
Yeah.
Wow.
The first Tkufa, according to Shmuel, and I don't want to get into this now, we'll talk about it later, did not fall at the same time of the Molad.
بداية عمر.
So, but we'll discuss that.
Well,
So,
you
what
gotta tell me
happens
basically.
at some point, when do we add an extra month? We add an extra month when the Tkufa keeps losing time. Now, and that's how we, in the 3rd year, in other words, and when we lose too many days, so I have it here if you're interested.
It works out.
It keeps working out. And then what happens, in other words, and so let's do it this way. Any time, right? So, after all of that,
So it can't be
if
more
we
than-
assume year 1, let's do it this way. Year 1, let's assume it's at the same point. So year 1, they're at the same. What happens year 2?
The 10 years.
So we're behind, let's say, closer to 11 days, right? We're behind 11 days. Now in year 3,
You're behind 22 days.
so we don't do that.
So we put a Shana Me'obedet. So
And now what happens? We're on top of it 18 days.
Wait, so we can never go past.
18?
It's 20.
22. 22,
No,
you
but
get
you don't
30.
need to
Wait,
do
you
it.
added 30 days. 1 second, you added 30 days.
Right, because I got it.
I added 30 days now, I add a
Yeah,
month.
but you lost 11.
No, but you didn't
didn't
lose
lose
That's
that.
why I said 19 days. I said 18, 19.
No, but
You
you
were
were
down
behind 11 already.
No, you didn't lose 11 the second.
You don't lose 11 in the
because
second
you
because
had-
it's a leap year.
Yeah.
You don't
No,
lose
you
11
get 30, but you lose 11.
You still lose
Right,
11.
you only
Still
You always
lose
lose
it.
11, but they add 30.
Right, yeah.
So you
okay,
gain
fine, go
19
back.
days, but you were 11 behind, so it should be plus 8.
Right, that's
Because
how
I
I'm
lost
thinking.
22.
So I understand what you're saying. In other words,
No, because year
No,
1, I started
you
from year 1. Year 1, I didn't lose anything. Right, no, it works
here
out
I'm at the
19.
same.
Yeah.
In year 2, I'm minus 11.
Okay, so then the next.
Now I'm going to lose
Year
another
3 should
11,
be
but add
minus
30.
another 11.
So I'm going
Oh,
to gain
so 30
19.
minus
You get there,
22 plus 30.
you're up 19.
No, you're minus
Right, I was
22
nine
plus
minus
30.
11.
Yeah, you
Okay,
got
okay,
there.
It was
I
minus
understand
11
what
from
you're
before.
Later.
Yeah, when I
Year-
said, okay, I understand, I understand.
year
I understand what
three,
you're
so
saying.
now I'm bitter.
You're, I'm just adding,
He's
when
saying
I
to that
said you're
particular year.
plus 18,
To that
I said
particular
you're
year.
plus 18 relevant to the distance between the molad and the tkufa of the previous year.
Yeah.
I wasn't.
He doesn't mean
Because you're not
total
doing
of
it
all 3 years.
cumulative
Yeah,
to
yeah,
the year
yeah.
1.
You guys go.
Right.
All right. So guys, this is, and
So we're never going to be more than 20 days.
now let
behind.
me, and we're going to discuss this more. I'm just introducing it. The problem
Where's the
here.
cutoff, by the way?
Huh?
Where is the cutoff where we have to add the month? 14?
No, you so
No, we'll discuss that. I'm going to talk about that. I will talk about. The main thing is it's not 14. We'll talk about it because we're going to have to discuss when the point starts. I'm just throwing you out the cycles. We already know that we do it at 3, 6, 8, 11, 14, 17, and 19.
What happens at the end of 19?
Okay, good.
Go back to 3.
That's-
Meaning
that's
one
about-
year
Now,
1 and 2.
You need the exact
Guys,
calculation.
I want to know, this is interesting. If I would do, right, what you're asking me is, how is the relationship between this to this? That's what you really asked.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what you're basically asking me.
Yeah.
In other words, if I did 19 times 365.25, and I did 235 times 29, 12, 793,
Yeah. Right.
6939.75. Yeah, and what was
would they be equal?
Well, I'll tell you now.
Go ahead.
Meaning, and this is how we know Shmuel. Right.
So I will tell you now, right now,
Yeah.
that they are close to equal. But there is a discrepancy.
What do we
There
do?
is a discrepancy in that, which would happen in that 20th year. The 20th year wouldn't equal the first year.
Fine.
Actually, the Tkufa would have advanced 1 hour, 26
The solar
minutes
Tkufa.
Month. No.
The solar
and
Tkufa.
56 2/3 seconds.
Which one was that, Rabbi? Which one?
So in other words, according to Shmuel, the end of the 19-year cycle doesn't solve my problem
So it's not
because it's
established
still
according-
greater.
So it wasn't established according to Shmuel?
So, the 19-year cycle doesn't fully, the 28-year cycle works great for Shmuel. But the 19-year cycle, it's still not foolproof. What do we do with this 1 hour? It's after 300 cycles, that's 300 hours.
Yeah, but like weeks. Wait.
So, enters in another guy. And he says, I'm going to define.
Wait, that's it? Shmuel's done? What do you mean?
Let me finish. enters in somebody else. And we don't use Shmuel for anything for the 19-year cycle. What we do is, we say, guess what? We already know what this number is, 230 lunar cycles, right? That's it. 235 times Katyab Test.
So we just make 19.
So Rav Ada bar Abba comes and says, I'm going to create my own cycle. And I'm going to do it by putting an equal sign.
What a scam.
It's not a scam because, ironically, it comes out much more accurate than Shmuel's cycle.
But that's how he did it, though? That was...
There is debate. It's hard to believe that it comes out perfect by accident. Now watch what Rav Ada's year is.
So why did we do that? Why did we make...
Rav Ada's year is not 365 and a quarter. It's 365, 5 hours, 55 minutes, and 25.4 seconds. Most authorities believe that Rav Ada just dismissed that extra hour and 26 minutes.
By doing that?
According to Rav Ada, this number, multiplied by 19 times this, will be exactly 235 Katyab Tashsak.
So he didn't dismiss it, he just avoided it.
Put an equal sign.
Yeah.
Now, it is that calendar that we rely on for all our holidays. It is this calendar that we use when we want to now make the Shanot Me'ubalot perfect. It is this calendar that we use when we say every 19 years it will all come back to perfection. It is Rav Ada's calendar, not Shmuel's calendar. Both numbers are not perfect. Because if you remember the actual number, Rav Ada is about 5.5 minutes off, and Shmuel is about, what, 10.5 minutes?
11 and a quarter.
11.25 minutes off? Yeah. So, Rav Ada is much closer. Rav Ada's year is about, what is it? 5 minutes shorter than the Shmuel year. Correct? Yeah.
Yeah, it's right there.
6 hours, right.
Well,
6
1
hours, about 5
4
minutes.
minutes and 30.
How long is it here?
Huh?
How long is it over there here?
365, 5 hours, 55 minutes, 25 more seconds. Minus the Shmuel year, that's 365 and 6 hours. So it's about 4.5 minutes smaller.
25.4 seconds.
What came first? The 19-year cycle or the solar year calculation?
That's correct. Okay, now,
It makes no sense.
all right. Now, all right? So, and it is this calendar of Rav Ada that we use for our holidays. Okay? So we have 3 numbers. We have the Shmuel calendar, which is 365 and 6. And that, by the way, equals perfectly. And there's an important use of Shmuel's Tkufa. We're going to figure out Tkufot according to Shmuel and Rav Ada, because we need both. We need to know when to make Barech Aleinu, and we also need to know the secret of the 19-year cycle. And that 19-year cycle is important because we need to know Tkufat Nisan according to Rav Ada, because we have to make sure that that Pesach never comes before Tkufat Nisan. That's the whole secret of the 19-year cycle. So, we have 2 Tkufot al pi halakha. Shmuel and Rav Ada. I haven't told you how to figure either one of these out. I told you according to Shmuel, what's interesting and easy according to Shmuel is what? That basically, at the 28 years, the cycle repeats itself per day of the week and time, right? It's just, the tkufot are 28 years and then everything goes back. So it's perfect. Whereas in Rav Ada, there's no such repetition.
So why is there?
But, one second, but there's a benefit to Rav Ada in that Rav Ada makes his tkufot much more in sync with the molad, whereas Shmuel is never perfectly in sync with the molad. So each tkufa calendar has a benefit and a drawback. And they both have the drawback that they're not 100% accurate. Shmuel's benefit, the advantage of Shmuel is what? That it's perfectly, the cycle repeats itself every 28 years. So if I figured out a 28-year cycle of when every tkufa happens for all 4 seasons, I'm pretty good. I only need that 20, and then I could keep doing it. Whereas for Rav Ada, no such luck. You're going to have, but for Rav Ada, I got another benefit. That there is something in Rav Ada's calendar that will repeat itself, and that is the place of the tkufa relevant to its closest molad. Meaning, Tkufat Nisan to Molad Nisan, that after 19 years, whereas, again, the Tkufa won't be repetitive, but in relation to its closest Molad, it will repeat itself every 19 years. Because every 19 years, it is exactly at the same point it was relevant to the Molad.
So it'll be like within the...
There's, at the end of the 19-year cycle, relevant to the Molad, there's nothing left over for Rav Ada. According to Shmuel, there is. But Shmuel has another benefit that the Tkufa has a perfect cycle every 28 years, because 1 1/4 multiplied by 28 is 35. It's weeks, and it comes back to the exact same night of the week. So each one has an advantage to use and a disadvantage. Okay? Rav Ada, again, being closer to the more accurate number. Okay. One other point, and with this, this today is really just an introduction. Don't think you're going to get any full answers today. I'm just throwing them out. I'm just introducing the Tkufot. We will deal with everything I'm saying and much greater. I just need to throw out some stuff. There's one other peculiarity. Just a little bit of our seasons. All right? I just want to know. See, if you take Shmuel, 365 1/4, and I want to know how many seasons, how long each season. So I divide that by 4, and I came up to 91 days, 7.5 hours, right? Assuming, perfect. Let's go back to our accurate calendar, right? How long will each season be? Well, I told you, the year is what? Who remembers the number I gave you? 365, 5 days, 48 minutes, and...
5 hours.
What?
5 hours.
Huh? 5 hours, 48 minutes, and 45 seconds, right? So what are you going to tell me? How long is each cycle? How long is each season? What should I do now? Divide by 4. Well, let me tell you how long each season is. Spring is 92.84 days. Yep. Summer,
What decided that?
it's from time to equinox to solstice. The God decided that.
Oh.
93.6 days.
Yeah.
Fall is 89.8 days. And winter is 89.02 days. Seasons are not equal. And there's a simple reason. Because it's simple. The ecliptic, you don't need it, I have a book. Okay,
What about the rest of us?
I still need it.
What?
I still need it.
this is, okay, I keep doing Earth in the middle, right? This is the sun, right? And this is how the Earth is. I'm going to exaggerate the proportions to make a point.
what day is the closest to the sun?
Summer.
Summer's actually the furthest.